NHL regular season recap, night 136, a bunch of good games today. The first one, a matinee matchup between Carolina and Winnipeg, two teams that I feel like rarely get the 1 p.m. slot, but we got the two of them this afternoon. No goals in the first, a sluggish start for both teams. In the second, Carolina jumps on their opportunities. It's Natchez, Teravainen, and Aho all scoring in the latter half of the period. 3-0 Carolina after two, but in the third, the Jets rebound in a big way. Kyle Connor scores just a minute and a half in. Nino Niederreiter another minute and a half later makes it a 3-2 game, and then Mark Scheifele, 5:40 into the period, ties it up. With just over 3 minutes to go, Kochetkov with a bad play that ends up costing them. It's a 4-3 game. Sean Monahan burying this one. And then with 11 seconds to go, Niederreiter, his second of the game on the empty net. And it's a 5-3 win for Winnipeg. Both goalies pretty good aside from the one blunder from Kochetkov, honestly. He goes 27 for 31 and 871. Hellebuck, meanwhile, the better of the two, going 32 for 35, a 914. A really entertaining game both ways. Both the teams should be happy with the way it went. I think Carolina obviously just gets kind of boned by that one mistake from Kochetkov, honestly. And of course, you can't give up in the third, but they only gave up 12 shots, so it wasn't like they got completely pounded in the last frame. Nonetheless, the Jets will take this one. It's a 5-3 regulation win over a very, very good Carolina team. The Red Wings hosting the Florida Panthers, and for as good as the Red Wings have looked lately, the Panthers just look so dominant. They outshoot the Red Wings 37-21. No goals in the first, Montour and Reinhart in the second, and then Rodriguez and Verhaeghe in the third. It's a 4-0 blanking of a very hot Detroit Red Wings team. Bob goes 21 for 21. Alex Lyon was not bad by any means in this one. He goes 33 for 37. The much busier of the two goalies. Montour added 2 assists to his 1 goal. Rodriguez also with an assist. Just overall a very, very solid game from Florida. They were up 2-0 going into the third. Despite that, they outshoot Detroit 16-6 in the final frame. They were just on top of it the entire game. It's a dominant win for them. 4-0 is the final. Edmonton visiting the Seattle Kraken. A bit of a surprising little goalie duel here. I guess more surprising that Seattle just didn't get their pants blown off by Edmonton, but it's just a 2-1 final. Edmonton, no goals in the first. Leon Draisaitl in the second. Brett Kulak in the third. Ellie Tolvanen scores with about 6.5 to go in the third to make it a 1-goal game. Stuart Skinner holds his ground. 24-25 for him. 22 of 24 for Gruby. Leon with a goal and an assist. Not really too much to talk about in this game. A good little battle, but not a ton of shots either way. Wasn't the most entertaining game. The Oilers will take it. They get their 2 points. Seattle loses a tough one in a playoff race. All the same stuff. Not really too much else to talk about in this one. 2-1 Oilers is the final. The Avalanche visiting Nashville, and the Preds are officially hot, man. They score 5 goals on the Colorado Avalanche, a team that is potentially still favored to win the division, despite the fact that they're in third. I know it's tight up top, whatever. Cody Glass and Nate McKinnon trade goals in the first, just Glass's third of the year, but he would add to that pretty quickly. He scores another in the second, and then O'Reilly and Novak in the third, but Glass adds the empty netter for his first career hat trick. It's a 5-1 victory for Nashville. They were all over it tonight, and they have been really for the last couple of weeks. Tommy Novak with a filthy one for his 1 goal tonight. UC Saros, 25 of 26, a 962. Alex Georgiev, 30 of 34, and 882. Just not quite good enough for the win here. Nashville is frying the entire Western Conference right now. I don't know if I see another team outside the race catching them. If they keep this up, they have to keep playing, not at this pace, but if they keep going at like just a portion of this, they're making the playoffs, and the Kings will frankly be in more danger of missing out than they will, because they have looked unreal as of late. A huge win over a very good Colorado team. 5-1 is the final. The Wild visiting St. Louis in a battle for 5th place in the Central Division, and St. Louis took care of business tonight. Another game that didn't have too many shots. Torpchenko, the only goal in the first. Merrill and Neighbors trading goals in the second, and then Torrey Krug pots the empty netter in the third. It's just a 3-1 final. Only a total of 49 shots between the two teams in this one. Binnington goes 21 for 22. Fleury going 24 for 26. Both of these guys were pretty solid here. A big win from the Blues, though. They create a little bit of separation. Just going to touch on the standings quickly in the West. We'll go wild card down. Preds have 72. Kings have 70 after tonight. The Flames have 65. The Blues tied with them at 65. Seattle at 63. And the Wild at 62. So again, the Wild win this one. The Blues are at 63 points. The Wild would have been at 64. But the Blues get it done. They're now just a couple points back of LA for that last wild card spot, but still some ground to go. This win helps them get there. It's a 3-1 final over Minnesota. The Sabres hosting the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Buffalo Sabres have been pretty good as of late. They rock the Golden Knights in this one, 7-2. Jeff Skinner, the lone goal in the first. Cousins, Brisson, Carlson, and Gergensons in the second. And then in the third, it is all Buffalo. Okposo, Power, Middlestat, and a second from Dylan Cousins. Again, 7-2 the final in this one. Not a good night from Logan Thompson. He goes 80%, 28 for 35 in this one. UPL, meanwhile, continues to play pretty solid. 22 of 24, the less busy of the two goalies by quite a bit here. But the Sabres, again, have been looking pretty good over the last 2-3 weeks. So it would have been nice to see this earlier in the year, as I mentioned in my power rankings. But probably too little too late at this point. It is good to see them carrying this positive momentum. We'll see if they do anything at the deadline. I don't expect them to be doing too much, but they'll take the momentum heading into the offseason, I guess, barring some kind of miracle run into the playoffs. Tonight, a big win over Vegas, 7-2 is the final. The Rangers taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this one was another pretty good game. Alexi Lafreniere opens the scoring halfway through the first. In the second, we get a little more scoring. Marner, Trocheck, and Nylander all trading goals. It's 2-2 after 2. 7 minutes into the third, Johnny T makes it 3-2 Leafs, but with just over a minute to go, Vincent Trocheck, his second of the game, a fortunate bounce off the pad of Ilya Samsonov, is the goal that forces overtime. We head all the way to a shootout where it goes pretty lengthy all the way to the fourth round. Zibanejad, Marner, and Domi, the three goal scorers here. Domi, of course, with the game winner, and it's a 4-3 shootout victory for Toronto. Both goalies also really solid in this one. Shesterkin, 31 of 34, a .912 save percentage, while Samsonov goes 32 for 35, just slightly better at a .914. Both these guys had some fantastic saves. It was a really fun game to watch. 4-3 Leafs is the final. The Flyers hosting the Ottawa Senators, and after a pretty tough loss to Washington on Friday night, Philly comes back in a big way and takes care of business as they should against this Senators team. Joel Farabee in the first, Tarasenko makes it a 1-1 game early in the second, but then Forrester scores 2 in the final minute of the second to make it 3-1 Flyers. The game's kind of over from there. Shabbat does score in the last 2 minutes of the third, but Cam York nets the empty netter with just a second to go, and it's a 4-2 victory for Philly. Both goalies were pretty solid. Mads Søgaard getting the start here for Ottawa. He goes 36 for 39. Definitely the busier of the two, a .923 save percentage. Felix Sandstrom, his first game since being called up, would have an identical save percentage, but he goes 24 for 26 in the winning effort. This is a much-needed win for Philly. There's some teams in the Metro trying to climb back into the fight. This win continues to keep them a little bit ahead of those other Metro teams, though. It's definitely not over yet. We still got 20-plus games to go for a lot of these teams, so a big win for Philly, one they needed in a very big way after losing to Washington. 4-2 over Ottawa is the final. The Lightning taking on the Canadiens, and the Canadiens made this one a lot tougher than I would have expected, but eventually the Lightning do get the job done. Armia and Evans score the first 2 goals of the game. It's 2-0 Canadiens after 1. A little bit dicey here for the Bolts, but Braden Point and Anthony Cirelli both score in the second, knotting us up at 2. Anderson and Mott would trade goals in the middle half of the third, and we would go to a shootout in this one as well. Caulfield and Stamkos both scoring early on. We go all the way to the 6th round where Victor Hedman scores the shootout winner, and it's a 4-3 victory for the Bolts. Both goalies almost identical stats here. Primo goes 27 for 30. Vasi goes 28 for 31, a .900 and .903 save percentage, respectively, for those two guys. The Bolts just barely get it done. 4-3 is the final. The Islanders hosting the Bruins, and the Isles, and more specifically Kyle Palmieri, came out buzzing in this game. Palms with a natural hat trick in the first period. Andersley and Brock Nelson make it 5-0 about halfway through the second. McLaughlin would score his first of the year to make it 5-1, and that's all the scoring we get in this one. A dominant performance from the Islanders. Allmark, not a good night, 21 of 25 and 26 and 808 save percentage, while Sorokin goes 22 of 23, 4 and 957, much better of the two goalies. This is a much needed win for the Islanders. They're now in 4th in the Metro, kind of out of nowhere, but they're there. The race is very much alive for them. A huge win over a very strong Boston team. 5-1 is the final here. The Stars taking on the Sharks, and this one was a lot closer than I would have thought. Will Eklund with his 10th of the year in the first. Foxa and Zadina trade goals in the second, and then Jason Robertson, about 4 minutes in, ties us up at 2. We head all the way to the shootout where it's Jamie Benn who scores the eventual game winner. Both Duclair and Duchesne had goals in the second round, both of which were pretty nice, but at the end of the day, Magnus Krona just not quite able to stop enough. He goes 36 for 38. It was a really good game from him. Good to see that from the ex-national champion with Denver. A 947 for him. Jake Ottinger does enough for the win. 21 of 23, a 913. He will take the 2 points. That's all he's going to care about in this one. The Stars retain their first spot in the Central Division. The Sharks made it competitive once again, but not quite able to get it done. 3-2 here is the final in a shootout. The Blackhawks taking on the Blue Jackets in another edition of the Battle of the Basement, and man, oh man, is Arvid Soderblom having a rough year. He gets four buried on him by Columbus, not a team that's exactly notorious for getting a bunch of goals. Texier, Jenner, and Kurashev in the first, Olivier and Sillinger in the second. Donato would make it a 2-goal game, and then Johnny Gaudreau would net the empty netter, and it's a 5-2 victory for Columbus. Merzlikins actually had a decent night. He goes 26 for 28, a .929 save percentage for him. Just not good enough at all from the Blackhawks. Very much good enough from Columbus. Fun win from them. Neither of these teams really care for the 2 points, so I guess Columbus is happy with the win. Chicago, obviously not going to like losing, but they will take the better odds at Macklin Celebrini. 5-2 here is the final. And the final game of the night, the Penguins visiting the Flames for Mika Kiprasov's jersey retirement night. And it looked good early for the Penguins. Gruden and Eller scoring in the first 2-0 after one. Sharon Govich would make it a 1-goal game about 3.5 minutes into the second, but no goals again until 3 minutes into the third, where it's Jeff Carter making it a 3-1 game. And it looks like things are in really good shape for the Penguins. However, halfway through the period, Nazem Kadri on the power play, netting his 22nd of the year, and we have a 1-goal game. And then just 30 seconds later, Blake Coleman fits, ties it up. It's 3-3, and then with less than a minute to play, Ryan Graves throws not really a suicide pass, but not a great pass to Chris Letang. Letang coughs it right up to Backlund to Sharon Govich, and he roofs it on Tristan Jarry, and it's a 4-3, notably regulation win for the Calgary Flames. This is 2 points, or at least 1 point, that if you're a Penguins fan, you are so pissed about losing. This game was locked up 3-1 halfway through the third. This should never happen. This is the same deal that they just had the other night against Seattle. They didn't cough up a lead in that one, but they just weren't able to get it done. Tonight, another example of that. They have a 3-1 lead in the third, and they just spit it out. Say, here you go, Calgary, take your 2 points in regulation. We don't even want one. I love it as a Caps fan. It's hilarious. But if you're a Penguins fan, like, holy smokes, I can only imagine what you're feeling after this one. A 4-3 win. Jacob Markstrom, 27 for 30. He was not great in this game. He was good enough for the win, but the Penguins definitely could have walked away with this one. Jarry, 16 for 20, and 800 save percentage. Not quite good enough from him either, but should have been maybe a 3-2 game. The goal from Sharon Govich was nice. Coleman's was, like, fine. I don't know. I'm baffled that this game fell out of the hands of the Penguins. I will take it all day long as a Capitals fan, but holy smokes, this is a bad one. 4-3 in favor of the Flames, and that's it for NHL regular season recap night 136. Decent little slate tomorrow, so we'll see what happens, and I anticipate maybe we get our first trade of the trade deadline season tomorrow. Who knows, if you exclude that Chris Tanev trade. Whatever, go to bed. 4-3 Flames. Screw the Penguins. Talk to you guys tomorrow.